What's up, y'all? Shuffle. This is take 2 of the enemy tier list because my dumbass forgot to record, but we're going to go through as many enemies as we can in the video, talk about how cool they are, how well designed they are, where they should go in our tier placement, and we have a special guest, the creator of the Gaunt and Chirurgeon, all-around good dude, Darkest Dungeon 2 enemy appreciator, disease connoisseur, Sammy. What's up, man?
Thank you for that sparkling introduction. You know, a less glamorous title of mine would be the Leechmonger, since I also added both the leech disease cures in the game, and that's been my biggest claim to fame this whole time. So as you said, I really enjoy thinking about and discussing Darkest Dungeon enemies, particularly in the second game, and I think there's a lot more to say about them than most people give them credit for, so I'm really excited to be here and give them a little insight.
Yeah.
Oh.
In the first failed take of this, you know, we only got through 2 enemies, but there was still a lot to talk about for these first 2, so hope you don't mind rehashing.
Oh no, I could talk about the Lost Soul for forever. Actually, that's not true. I could talk about him for like 30 minutes, but that's a long time considering how basic he seems. There's a lot to say about some of these guys.
You want to start with the Lost Soul then, as you did before?
Let's do that. I think people don't give the Lost Soul enough credit because he's like, yes, he's a basic one slot enemy team filler. Like, no one's gonna give him like really a second look compared to even the other Gaunts and much less the other region enemies. He's very unassuming, but I think he does his job really well because, like, if you look at the other slot filling, like, basic enemies in the first game, like, there's the one that comes to mind is the Bone Rabble. All he could do was just bump in the night or graveyard slash or whatever, and he would just whack you for 5 damage, and that's it. And direct damage in Darkest Dungeon is not a big factor. So the Bone Rabble were just completely ignorable enemies for the most part. And what sets the Lost Soul apart is not only the 50-50 stress chance on his chomp, which does add some permanent effect to his attacks, but it's mainly the 5% disease chance, which, as low as it is and as annoying as it can be to trigger, it does add genuine tension to any battle with the Lost Souls in them, and it makes you not want to spend forever in a fight against them, like stalling to heal or get your or use your combat items or whatever. And I think it's a subtle thing, and it might be a bit annoying to some people, but it's an important thing that speeds up road fights.
Yeah, and as I said before, I completely agree with the analysis, especially like the disease things. That's enough to keep it threatening at all times, make you want to take it down first, but then also not like oppressive. You know, this thing doesn't have 30 HP and 9 speed. You know, it's got like 12 HP, so it goes down in like 1 or 2 hits.
It's an interesting way to make it maybe interesting is the right word. It's a pretty clever way to make it threatening without making it directly dangerous, you know?
Yeah. Also, wiki outdated on the stress chance.
I think this is before I knew about the wiki forking from fandom, so I actually went and updated all the Gaunt pages to make them current, but I didn't realize that it was on the fandom wiki and that wouldn't be used anymore, so I need to go back and change the real wiki.
All good. Also, shouts to the wiki team.
Yeah, you guys are doing awesome.
I think Bone Rabble is a really good comparison too, because it's like Bone Rabble, but you know, actually dangerous, where it's not just gonna hit you for some damage; it's gonna actually do something that is devastating sometimes.
Yeah, and even the stress is it's a factor, but even so, I'm glad that like the wiki is outdated. It used to have a 75% chance to deal stress, but in the 1.0 release patch, they changed it to 50-50 while increasing the chomp damage slightly, and I think that was a good change because while I like the stress as a sort of permanent toll that fighting Gaunts takes on you, it was a little too consistent, and making them a little stronger in terms of direct damage sort of makes the other Gaunts stand out more as stress dealers in comparison.
Yeah, like Urchin.
Like Urchin.
Very good point. All right, so we talked about this before, but I think we both agreed on A initially.
Yeah.
This very solid enemy, looks good, you know, pretty well tuned, all things considered. And it's got that Darkest Dungeon flavor where there's a 5% chance you want to rip your hair out.
Exactly. What more can you ask for?
Exactly. All right.
All right.
Woodsman.
Woodsman.
This is where we got stopped.
I think Woodsman is genuinely kind of perfect. Because, like, you look at him, and he's a size 2. He's a big, hulking guy, and he has this huge axe. You think, oh, this is a tank. This is a tank that's going to hit my front guy for 500 more billion damage. And, like, yeah, he kind of does. But that's actually sort of a trick. The main thing he's actually supposed to do is an obstacle. He is this big, massive HP whose entire purpose is to just be a warm body that prevents you from effectively targeting the weaker Gaunts with more permanent effects like Widow's Horror or Urchin's Stress. He is such a good roadblock to taking them out effectively.
Yeah, he does that job very well. Like how you're saying, he has the guards, the 2 guards, and only the 1 block. So his job really is to protect the other Gaunts that are there.
The fact that he's the only, and he's like, that's like the worst guard skill in the game objectively. Yes. He only gets 1 block for guarding 2 hits, which really highlights the fact that he's not about preserving his own life at all. He's about just making it more difficult for you to attack the other weaker Gaunts. Unless it's Ghoul, in which case it's the other stronger Gaunt, but I'll let him have that.
Yeah, Ghoul with 2 guard is, oh my god.
Yeah, that's why I genuinely think Woodsman Ghoul is actually might be a more dangerous team than Ghoul, but that's a discussion for another time.
It is, but otherwise, I do feel what you're saying. He's very effective at what he does, kind of like the Lost Soul, and also not overpowering in the slightest. You know, he's got 2 death armor. That's a bit relevant. He can hit hard if he needs to, and he's got some lore that I'm not going to spoil, but he's got a connection to someone.
I like that both his guard and his carve the toy attack move him forward, because even if like the guard itself isn't relevant, like if you have Throne Dagger or something that adores guard, just the fact that he moves forward is interposing himself between your frontliners, who usually have the biggest damage, and the squishier Gaunts in the back. Because even if he's not like directly messing with you with his guard or his attacks, just moving forward is such a weirdly effective obstacle for you.
Yeah, especially because he's, you know, a large enemy. So if he moves forward, he pushes Widow to the back or Urchin to the back. It's not like they're still up front where you can do stuff to him.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we have the disease chance, but it's 2% lower. They were nicer to us this time.
I mean, it's so rare you probably don't even believe it happens, and like
it's happened to me
fighting it. Yeah. Fighting a woodsman, look away, get chopped, get disease, look back, like, where the hell did I get this color from?
The 1 molecule of rust on the edge of his axe.
Alright. Yeah. We gotta rank him.
I honestly think he might be S, because I love him so much. I can't think of anything that could be changed about him to do his job better. He's just such a interesting and thematically appropriate take on a tank character that I think he's really cool and deserves credit.
I'm trying to think of like a disagreement to not put him that high, but I'm like struggling for one. And I think the thing that kind of pushes it for me too is not just the gameplay mechanics, but the actual lore tie-in. Again, spoilers to another person, and I think it's a nice touch that you don't really see if you're not looking for it.
I know. Yeah. He's a really well-themed and well-executed enemy.
All right, I'll get down with it.
Thanks.
Oh, now we this one.
Oh boy.
I think you and me have gone at it on this in Discord like 4 times.
Yeah. See, I don't think anyone likes Widow, except maybe me. And even then I'm saying maybe because I don't even know if I like Widow, but I can absolutely see where Widow is going for, because you have to remember that Darkest Dungeon 2 was developed as sort of like the combat was developed sort of as a reaction to Darkest Dungeon 1 with the heal thresholds, the cooldown, the really de-emphasize stalling and stuns and stuff. So you have to look at the basic enemies and sort of view them in the mindset of like, okay, how are they trying to push you away from the mindset that DD1 gave you, which is stun enemies, stall a lot, heal to full in every fight, etc. Because that playstyle is what Red Hook really did not like about the first game. So looking at Widow, her main attack is Gruesome Reflection, which inflicts a 3-round horror with a very high chance to inflict stress every turn. So now, when she does that, you're basically on a timer, because you want to end the fight quickly enough so that the horror doesn't tick all 3 times, because 3 stress is a huge penalty to take from just a road fight. So you want to end the fight as fast as possible so that the horror cannot tick all 3 of those times. And then everything else that Widow does is just meant to make that harder, which is why she has the stun. The way she's I think the way I've interpreted that she's supposed to work is she whacks you with Gruesome Reflection, and then she hits you with the stun to make it harder to close out the fight fast enough to keep the stress gain down.
I totally agree with that breakdown. I know, been agreeing on everything so far, but it is
I'm
a
just
very
so clever and smart.
yeah, of course. But yeah, so I do agree that that's what it is. You know, she's kind of frail, but her whole thing is to put a little stress on you and then slow down the fight as much as she can to just let it go longer.
She's fragile because she doesn't need to survive to do what she does effectively. Once she's got that horror on you, that's it. She's done her job.
Yeah. Honestly, if she lives like 2 turns, she usually gets enough value.
Exactly. And like, I think that's where it gets a little complicated, because she's so fragile that she can't really do anything else aside from, like, she's so fragile that you just have to the game designers just have to hope she gets 1 stun off before she dies or something. And
Yeah.
I think if they were to nerf, like, I see this thrown around a lot to make Desperate Grab days or only stun on combo or something, and like, I get that people hate stuns, but if they took that stun away from her, then she would just be a slot filler enemy, unless she just spammed Gruesome Reflection every turn and stacked horror on you 2 or 3 times. And I don't think that's a good alternative either. So like, we're in this weird spot where if something changes, then the whole thing kind of gets thrown off. Like, she'd either have to get more health if you were to nerf her stun, or I don't know. It's a weird situation, I think.
It can be. And as far as Widow herself goes, she is, you know, like we're saying, incredibly frail. Not even just the HP total, right? She's got 2 speed. Most people can get ahead of that. She's got absolutely trash resist, so you can put any dot on her, you can disrupt her, you can daze her yourself, you can move her out of position, you can blind her easily. Like, everything sticks to this unit. It's just when you add stuff like Woodsman or, I don't know, just some other random thing happening in the fight that it gets harder.
Like whack and break, for example.
Yes, of course. And so with her, you know, just even opening this up and looking at the moves, it's not even just her defenses that are frail. She doesn't hit for any damage. Like 2 to 3, 1 to 2.
She just pokes you. That is also outdated, actually.
Oh, did it get higher?
Don't Look doesn't do stress anymore. And Gruesome Reflection doesn't do stress anymore either.
Oh, just
So
the
they're
horror?
really
Okay.
focusing on horror being her only stress source, which I think is a good move.
Yeah,
But
so she got
none of
nerfed.
none of her damage is good. None of her
Yeah.
damage has changed. It's still trash, like it is here.
Also, I'm gonna be honest too. I've hated this enemy for the longest time, but one time when I was talking to you about it, and you said it again just a minute ago, you're like, the stun is all she has, and I felt so much pity for
I know,
this unit.
like, God, you have no idea. This is getting a bit ahead of myself, but when we were working on the Chirurgeon and the buffs to give to the other enemies with his heal move, we just we couldn't do anything with Widow because healing her doesn't help much because she dies in 2 hits no matter what, and she doesn't do damage, so we can't buff that. What are we gonna do? Make her stun you twice?
Oh no.
So we just slapped some debuff and stun chance on her, and that's literally the best we could do, aside from dodge to hope hope she maybe survives
Yeah,
one attack.
That's something that I don't know how much of or how much exploration you gave that option, but I could see her getting like 1 or 2 dodge or something too, just to be a little annoying.
Yeah, the heal move does give her dodge, but
Okay.
then when you then you just throw a combat item at it or something, and she's back to being as frail as she always is. There's no design space to work with because Widow was so precisely designed to be a short battle enemy. Because remember, this was also when road battles were mandated to 5 rounds. Widow has barely changed since road battles were on a timer.
I know a lot of those 1.0 players don't realize, we used to only have 5 rounds to beat a road fight because they were, as Sammy was saying, so against stalling that they wanted to make sure you couldn't do it. There's the heal thresholds, the round limits, the use limits. So.
And I think a lot of the design of Gaunt in particular reflects that philosophy because they're the most common enemy. They're in the roadblock hallway fights, and I think we're only just now seeing them start to move out of that because Woodsman in particular got huge buffs coming from 1.0 because there were no round timers anymore. He could afford to be tankier. He could afford to be more disruptive, and I think that's made Gaunt fights in general a lot more interesting. But Widow hasn't changed much since then, and while I still think her purpose is effective, it's not as relevant anymore now that the meta has changed.
The meta game.
The meta game for the enemies, not us.
And even then, I don't want to circle back to Woodsman for too long, but making him tanking stuff, he also benefited greatly from the death armor system.
Exactly, yes.
His DBR used to be 25, so it was barely anything. But now he's got 2 death armor, that's relevant.
Uh-huh. But poor Widow just has nothing. So I think she's B.
Really?
Or C.
Damn.
Because I don't know what to do with her. I just feel really bad for her.
I was half expecting an S from how much you defend this unit. But
I defend her because I know what they were going for with her, but that doesn't mean I think it's worked all too well in practice because if so many people hate this enemy, then something isn't quite right, regardless of the intention.
Yeah, I mean that's always that's a good line of thought. But then also I think of, gamers in general just like to complain too.
Oh, I know, but
no, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think B's good. BC, I was kind of feeling that too. So look at that, more hive mind.
Yeah.
Urchin. You want me to go? I can.
Yeah. How about you start for a change?
Okay. So with Urchin, this kind of reminds me of Madman from the first game. Just not, no stress cleave, but it's supposed to be just a lot of stress damage on one person. And it's supposed to be hard to hit. Madman in the first game had a ton of evasion, whereas Urchin doesn't, because there's no accuracy stat. So it gets stealth, which is in a lot of ways very strong. And so
I think it's very good that he gets stealth. I think that's a very smart move because
it is.
de-stealth moves have never been particularly useful to just have on in general, but having stealth be on a common road fight enemy does make it so that you feel rewarded for having a de-stealth move on if you run into that, which is good. And I think stealth is a much more interesting way to make him evasive than just giving him dodge plus on spawn or something.
Yeah, because, if he can go into stealth, you still have ways to hit him, and it makes you feel smart if you do. You can throw like a plague grenade and hit 2 units, ping him. Even if there's a corpse, you can still ping him with an AoE, and those de-stealth moves get better also. So it's interesting. I think one of my favorite things about Urchin, and it's because of that stealth, I think you raised an excellent point, is it won't use the Haunting Melody attack if it is not in stealth. So if you keep taking the stealth off of him, he'll just sit there spamming the stealth.
I know.
Move.
And that actually leads into a sort of funny byproduct of this. It's not that he can't use Haunting Melody if he's not in stealth. I mean, it is, but he only needs to be in stealth to use Haunting Melody. So like if you take away his crit token, he'll still use it. So like in the Chirurgeon fight where the Chirurgeon gives him stealth with his heal move, but no crit, the Urchin won't use that opportunity to use Song of Shadows, get the crit, and then kill you. He'll just let Haunting Melody rip right away without the crit token, which I think is really funny.
That's pretty cool, honestly, from the design perspective, because I like it in probably a very, very strange way that most people don't, give a crap about. But in Darkest Dungeon 1, I felt that crits were just too central to the gameplay. And I like that this enemy will use its signature move regardless of the crit. Like, that's not the point. The point is to, be almost untargetable and then do the move.
And then drop his stress bomb on you.
Yeah, and actually, without the crit token too, this move doesn't even, seem that
it doesn't hurt that much.
Yeah,
and
it's 2 stress.
Only 2 stress. It's so associated with the crit token because there's almost never a way to get him in stealth without that crit token.
Yes.
That you're used to the crit being its base stats, basically.
I know, this thing hits you for like 7 to 9 plus 3 stress. That's what people are used to.
He's a very, it's a very simple enemy. He just cloaks himself, hits you, and then moves back to do it again. But he's pretty rewarding to disrupt or counter, and he rewards getting focus damage in where you can when he's like in the front trying to move back. He rewards targeting him effectively with, I know he's not super strong, but like if you stick a Volt on him or something, that makes him easy to take down with anyone.
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
That's it makes him worth prioritizing, and I think that's very cool.
I think another thing with him too that I enjoy is he's kind of out of the Gaunt faction. He's, excluding Ghoul and the boss and stuff. He's one that you have to pay attention to, and it kind of teaches the players, especially like new players, to understand that enemies like to set up and then do stuff, and that makes you, try and disrupt that, look for what they're doing, because it's not like a very hard to follow pattern. It's like, go back, blast you over and over. And so while you're trying to learn how to disrupt that, counter it, whatever, you also do things like check the turn bar, so you know when he's going. So I think he's a great teaching tool.
And not to talk about him for too long, and not to keep harping on DD1. I promise I still like that game, but like I can't stop. I can't help but think about like the quote unquote stress casters in that game, like the Bone Noble or Cultist Witch, who just stand in the back and throw an attack at you for 2 damage and
every
like
turn.
20 stress.
Yeah.
This is a way more interesting and fun way to do a stress caster.
Yes.
and I just think that deserves credit. So I think I think he could be an A along with Lost Soul, because
He could be. My one thing that I actually dislike about Urchin is the random disease on the smoking step.
I almost forgot about that. It's like they realized that he didn't have a disease, and they're like, oh, we got to give him one.
Yeah, because I kind of wish he didn't have it, because like the other Gaunts all have like some kind of signature thing. You know, the Lost Soul uses disease, the Woodsman uses guard, the Widow stuns you and horrors you, and this guy blasts you after a setup. But then they give him disease too, just as like, you know, oh, he's got this just in case. I don't feel like he needs it. It doesn't really do anything.
It's got that just in case you can't like do 11 damage to him when he's in the front or something. I don't know. Yeah, it is a bit silly. I agree. I guess it's like they want the Gaunts as a whole to have a theme of disease, but I don't think it's necessary. It's not really necessary in his case. I'd almost prefer it if Haunting Melody had a disease chance, but maybe not.
No.
Yeah,
that move's already loaded. I guess with a crit token it's loaded, but without it, Alright, I mean, I could do A. My only other points against him besides like the disease is the design is cool, but not, you know, it's not as prominent as the other three.
I like it a lot, actually. I think his music box is a really cool aesthetic and a nice way to stylize the stress damage. It's better than just like using a staff and making black swirls around you to stress you. But I see your point. He's a bit basic.
And there are a lot more things I could actually say, because every time you bring something up, I'm like, oh, what about this? But we gotta move on.
Yeah, gotta move on.
And Ghoul is not labeled as a Gaunt, but if you go to the wiki, he's in the Gaunt section. So everyone knows this thing is a Gaunt.
He's in the Gaunt section. He's in the Chirurgeon's table. He gets a special buff. He's part of the family.
Yeah, so Ghoul got a massive glow up from the first game. The kit is largely the same, and it's still a huge jerk of an enemy. But you know, it's in this game. This is like the closest to a 1-for-1 port that I've seen from DD1.
Except for maybe pre-buff Shambler.
Yes.
But yeah, Ghoul is, I'll be honest, I think it's cool. I like that his mechanic is gaining block after every attack. I think that's a neat way to make him more tankier. I don't know where they got that from. Like, is that based on something from DD1? Like, why? I don't know why they picked Ghoul as the one to give that to. But I mean, it's kind of cool. It makes block ignoring moves a lot more powerful. But remember when for like a couple of months after early access launch, when it was dodge instead of block?
Yeah, no one liked that.
and then they changed it to block instead of dodge, and everyone rejoiced. But then we realized they gave the dodge every turn to the dogs instead.
Yeah, arguably worse, but
with
Ghoul, you know, the block I think made more sense because in the first game this thing had a ton of prot. That's why
40%.
Yeah, so when it had dodge, it was like this thing isn't evasive; it's just thick, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, what it can do and stuff, it is a jerk. It looks cool.
It's a huge jerk.
Yes,
looks so cool.
I think this is something. I think this was one of Red Hook's favorite monsters because their Twitter handle before DD2, I think, was the Ghoul's face.
Yes.
And then they announced DD2, and then now it's the new Ghoul's face.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. So they like this enemy. I think it looks amazing, especially in this game. It's got like that Attack on Titan look.
It's a really good mascot for them. I like the extremely pronounced nipple he has. It's very tasteful.
God, I didn't see that. Why? Why?
You're welcome. But I think, you know, we're gonna talk shit about some of the things that Ghoul can do, but I'm very sure that almost all of the annoying shit is intentional. Like, we could talk about how if you use taunt at the wrong time, he might just decide to use howl and ignore your taunt. But like, I'm sure they know about that. I'm sure they've seen this and they're like, that's funny, we're keeping it.
My only issue with Ghoul, because a lot of people get annoyed at Skull Toss, they get annoyed at the Ren disease and stuff. Like, yeah, it is annoying, but I really don't care. You know, my backline's been getting Skull Toss for like 7 years at this point. I'm used to it. But the one thing I dislike in Ghoul is Howl. And it's just because Torch is so hard to get. And if you get 2 of these and you can't kill them fast enough, you can walk out of that fight with like minus 40 Torch.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
I think they like, because he did lower Torch in DD1, but the difference is that Torch is way easier to come by in DD1. I think they maybe wanted to make that his like signature ability as a sort of throwback, because he's the only non-boss enemy that can lower Torch. And like, that's fine, but 10?
Yeah, 10's a bit much. I take 5.
10 is pushing it.
Yeah.
And adding that onto the horror and it ignoring taunt and pinging dodge tokens off of everyone, it's just a really strong move, and thank God it has a cooldown too.
Yeah, I know. And it gives it a disease, which I think can only be the worries off of Howl, but I might be wrong. It's got an asterisk next
it
to
is.
it.
Yes, it says the horrors down there for some reason, which isn't that's not a real disease. I don't know why that's still there. It's the worries, not the horrors. And the worries in this game just doesn't do anything unless you have a stress resist trinket. It just reduces stress resist, which is already 0 by default.
Yeah,
which
so
is
in case you're virtuoso, give someone some stress
I don't know.
immunity.
The other thing that I think is kind of silly is that he can use Skull Toss everywhere, but Rend only in the first 2.
Oh yeah, so you can Skull Toss from up front.
So like, he's in the back, and you pull him, like with the intent to disrupt him and stop him from using Skull Toss, but what you're really doing is you're just adding Rend to the pool of moves you can use, so now you're just hoping he uses Rend instead of Skull Toss, even though he can still do that. So like, it's still a marginally effective way to disrupt him. It's just like, you're still praying for it to work when you do it. I think that's a bit silly. Like, maybe having him be able to use both if he's in the middle, I could accept that, but like, having him in the back, he should only be able to use Skull Toss, I think, and having in the front should only be Rend.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. And it just goes to show how annoying Skull Toss is when you're trying to pull this thing up and it's like, oh, thank goodness it hit me for 4 to 6 with a bleeding disease.
Yeah, thank God.
Instead of a stun. But no, that's a good point. So I guess, you know, if the Torch effect got lowered a bit and, like you were saying, the Skull Toss rank, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be a good change. I mean, he's not like oppressive balance-wise. He's just very...
No, I think there's a reason Double Ghoul has become a kind of meme, because that makes all his annoying shit way worse. But him on his own is fine, I think.
Well, the thing is, too, when Double Ghoul originally dropped into the game, that's back when it spawned with dodge, generated dodge, and we had 5 round limits on road fights.
Yeah.
So it would just sit there, dodge half your attacks, you couldn't even kill one of them, and then they'd howl your torch off, you know, for 40 points, and then you'd leave.
And
with nothing.
Just like, bye ghouls, thanks for the minus 50 flame.
Yeah, and then even when they took away the road timer, that was actually a buff to Double Ghoul.
I know, because you can't hide and wait it out anymore.
And it's like, all right, I'll take my minus 40, 60, whatever torch, and I'll be on my way. No, JK.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, definitely not S, that's for sure. I think B or low A, personally. Not that they're ordered, I'm just thinking. Like, Ghoul is... TLDR, Ghoul is pretty cool and very threatening enemy, but I think all the throwbacks to DD1 baked into his kit make him way more oppressive in this game, comparatively. Like, Rend still does stress, for some reason.
Oh yeah, why is that? He doesn't need that.
All of his moves do stress, because in DD1, everything just did, like, 5 stress.
Yeah, that's because you had a big stress bar to play with, so it wasn't too bad if things were hitting you for, like, 3 and 5 and stuff.
Yeah, but in this game, just 1 stress is huge.
Yeah, one's a lot. Like, everything's a stress caster now.
And speaking of one stress being huge, patient.
Yes, let me... Okay, yes.
So it's Chirurgeon is still relatively new, and I still don't think a lot of people fully understand all the differences between patient and lost soul. And in addition to the obvious, hugely buffed base stats, fun fact: his max HP, all his resists except blight and debuff. All his stats, except blight and debuff resist, are just doubled across the board. Double max health, double speed, double dot resist, double stun, move, all of that. He's just twice as strong.
The blight's almost doubled anyway, because I think his base is 40. That's
yeah,
close.
And speaking of doubled, the Chomp stress chance, which is a coin flip on normal Lost Souls, 50-50, is now guaranteed, which is kind of huge, actually. When Eric and I were making the patients, we really wanted to take this chance to add a really threatening basic enemy to the Chirurgeon's table fights, because they desperately needed that, since our other slot fillers were Widow and Urchin, who are not exactly going to be taking much damage. We wanted to make patients pretty threatening to compensate, so we made Chomp have guaranteed stress, and like, I get where we were going, what we were going for with that, and it's just so much stress, dude.
It can
It's
be.
so much, and the damage isn't small either.
Oh,
That's
these
a
hit
lot
hard.
of damage for not ordained. Like that.
Yeah.
This is all base damage. When he's ordained or with a battle advantage, he hits really hard. And Chirurgeon gives him crit tokens too, which just makes this even worse. But I think the thing that makes this enemy really interesting to me and fun to make was that since he's exclusive to the Chirurgeon's table node, we got a chance to really tailor his moves around the Chirurgeon specifically, because that's why he debuffs your bleed resist, so the Chirurgeon can more easily bleed you with Bonesaw and Skullcap. That's why he inflicts Weaken with Sterile Morsel, so that the Chirurgeon has negative tokens to cure with his Trepanation that deals damage for every negative token cured on your heroes. And of course, he has a massively increased chance to disease you, just to fuel Chirurgeon's disease cure and make it happen more often.
Yeah, that can make people panic right away too. It's like, I'm getting a disease every hit, what the hell? But then you get cured.
He's sort of like if he'll often appear in the first wave before the Chirurgeon shows up, so he sort of like subtly prepares you for what's going to happen. Like, there's going to be diseases, there's going to be bleeds, and there's going to be debuffs. A lot of all of those. So when the Chirurgeon shows up, you're sort of already prepared to face those sorts of things.
That's actually a great point. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I'm really, this just shows what a great job you guys did. But I really like the idea of a two-wave fight. Kind of, if you're observant enough, you know, how like if you look at ordainment effects, you go, okay, maybe the boss does this. And so it's kind of this way with this guy. So it's like, well, what's the difference between this and Lost Soul? Oh, I'm bleeding.
Yeah.
I'm getting debuffed. And it's like, am I going to get bled later? You know, I got this debuff for bleed resist. The only thing that bleeds in the Gaunt besides, I guess, Ghoul is Woodsman.
Woodsman. Yeah. So like, you think the mini boss coming up might bleed you, and he certainly does a lot of bleed. So it's a good sort of like, it's a good sort of sign to bleed's coming.
It is. And these guys, I mean, I love the visual because it just looks so funny with all the leeches just attached to them, and it kind of explains the bonus HP. It's like, well, you know, they're getting healed up.
Yeah.
And with the, like you were saying before, you know, if these guys just get ordainment, you know, they're 30 plus HP, they can crit for over 20. These things get very, very strong. They scale very well.
And adding to that, the special buff they get from Chirurgeon lets them steal positive tokens from your heroes, which is different from like the Obsession ordainment buffs copying positive tokens. Stealing means you don't get to keep that token. So like if he's hitting your Man-at-Arms who has block plus, like 2 block plus tokens, the attack will get rid of 1 block plus token, and then the buff will steal 1. So now the patient has 1 block plus and you have none. It's a very threatening enemy that can lead to a lot of interesting and unexpected situations. Like one time I had him steal a speed token off of my jester who just used solo. So that made that made my next turn finale a little more awkward, but it was very funny, and I like that's one of the biggest understated benefits of DD2's token system. It can lead to way more systemic and emergent game design interactions like that, where things don't have to, like, we didn't specifically say, okay, he's going to steal the speed token from the jester in this fight. It just happened because of how the tokens worked and how his buff is implemented. It can lead to a lot more varied situations.
Wholeheartedly agree. And I guess the disease thing, you touched on it with the Chirurgeon, but since he's next, we'll, I guess, wait for that. In terms of the patient, like, I feel like this is near the top. Like,
the only reason I wouldn't put him in S, aside from sheer modesty on my part, is that I do genuinely think he is a tiny bit too tanky.
I could see that.
But, and I have lost so many runs to that guy. So
dude, they are the threat. Like, when you fight, if you do a Chirurgeon fight, it's not, at least in my experience, it's not the Ghoul, it's not the Woodsman, it's not the Widows, the Urchins, it is the freaking Patients. The Patients are so freaking dangerous in that encounter.
And it makes, we seem to always go back to him, it makes Woodsman so much more threatening, because now he has a size 1 filler enemy to defend that is a massive threat.
Yes.
In terms of damage and stress and stuff. He just makes taking out the patient way harder. Which is why I think the most threatening Chirurgeon team is Chirurgeon, Woodsman, and 1 patient.
Yes.
That team is so scary.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of which,
there's one thing. Sorry. There's one thing I want to jump in on, though. With patient, when you're saying that, you know, he's too tanky and stuff, I think baseline he's not quite that bad, but I think that's more of a separate topic of discussion, like ordainment and battle modifiers. I think those kind of push it, especially when you get like ordained elite, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, all right.
Patient was sorry. No, you reminded me of one more thing. Patient was sort of us trying to compensate with the power creep that heroes have gotten with pass and altar upgrades. Since the Gaunts are pretty much unchanged since release, their health has gotten a tiny bit higher, but for a mini boss node, we needed an enemy that can stand up to like Sharp Shot and Tempest and stuff. Yeah, and like, not to say that it's impossible to beat them without those pass, it's very doable, but we needed something that can stand up to them.
Yeah, no, I feel it. So.
Which might be a problem on its own, but like, me and Eric were enemy designers, not the hero balance team, so what can we do?
Well, with that said, I talk about your son, your pixelated
my beautiful son.
I gotta see if I can find his page real quick.
There he is.
It's right there.
I actually wrote most of this wiki article, by the way. That description is canon lore. Not really, but yeah.
You wrote all this like you're an expert on this character or something?
Yeah, it's that's crazy, but honestly, I can't take too much credit. Chris Baressa is the main. He was behind most of this design. Like it was entirely his idea to give Chirurgeon leeches. That was not. I did not consider that until now. I just, the only thing I had was like the vague doctor theme and like the entire basis for this character and now this enemy and mini boss was just the idea of an enemy that has some way to cure diseases on heroes. I just thought that was an intriguing idea that could be explored in cool ways, and the whole Doctor Leech's Gaunt concept evolved from that.
Yeah, design-wise, fantastic. And in terms of being able to cure disease mid-battle, this is such a creative way to do it, besides just, you know, the hospital or an item. Like, I've had 2 diseases on my characters, and I go to this node. Like, yeah, I might get my ass kicked, but I need to get this crap off of my heroes, and I'm gonna go here to do it.
That's exactly the kind of situation we were hoping for with this enemy. And I'm not gonna, since I'm obviously biased, I'm not gonna give like what I think the enemy is quality wise. I'm just gonna like explain, like, I'm just gonna explain why we did the things that we did with him, because all these things, so much of what he does, it seems kind of arbitrary, but it's very calculated. Like his low dot resist seem like such a terrible thing for a mini boss to have, but they're actually a total buff to him because he gets regen from dots because he's wearing both the trinkets that were in the game before he came out. And since he gets regen from dots, having low dot resist means they will nearly always stick, so he nearly always gets the regen whenever. If you like throw a plague grenade at the back two, you might blight like the urchin in rank 3, but you're also blighting the chirurgeon, who is going to get a net gain of health from that interaction. So it's a risk reward situation. And as a matter of fact, actually the first he was originally going to be immune to blight, because the Lost Soul is very blight resistant. The Patient is even more so blight resistant. So we thought, so at first it was like Chirurgeon, he's the alpha Gaunt, he should be immune to blight. But then I realized, wait, that would be like nerfing him, because that means he can't get the regen from getting inflicted with blight. So we lowered his blight resist to 10 across the board, his dot resist to 10 across the board. His stun resist is really high because
his turns are important.
His turns are important, but his stun resist is high because the way he works is very deliberate. You can sort of manage to stun him without like inflicting the stun token on him, because he has a hierarchy of how his skills work. The way it works is, if any of your heroes has a disease, he will always try to use bloodletting on them. And if that misses or they dodge, then he'll just use it again next round. He will always try to cure diseases no matter what. But then if no one has a disease, then he'll look on the whole battlefield for any negative tokens. And if you have some on your heroes, he'll try to bonk them and cure them with trepanation. But if the enemy team has any on theirs, then he'll try to cure them with trepanation. I think that's the only element of randomness here. I'm not sure what causes him to use, like if both teams have some, I'm not sure what causes him to use one or the other. It might be random, but then if no one has negative tokens, then he will use Bonesaw. And Bonesaw is a very scary attack for good reason, because if you're doing the fight the way we sort of want you to, you should always have negative tokens on somebody for him to be smacking and curing, instead of using his really dangerous Bonesaw attack. So you can sort of stun him yourself by either putting a debuff on one of the Gaunts, or if worst comes to worst, like using Pirouette and dazing yourself. Then he'll try to cure the daze instead of whacking your leper with a 12 damage Bonesaw.
And Grave Robber can dodge that, most likely, off
Pirouette. So like, it's all about ways to control the concept was finding ways to control the fight and sort of getting him to do what you want, which is why he can deal damage to the enemies. It was meant to incentivize like dumping like a smokescreen plus with the double blind vuln and causing him to do a bunch of damage to one other enemy.
It's pretty funny too, when like I think people who've done the fight a few times have probably seen him kill one of his allies. And that just really makes him feel like a neutral enemy. He's not even an enemy. He's a doctor. He's just very bad at it.
I love that, because Eric was telling me about the beta testers who, not to get too into it, but a lot of people saw him killing, like not even in beta, just like when it came out, a lot of people saw him killing enemies on death's door, and they're like, they report it to feedback and like hey, Chirurgeon is killing his allies when they're on death's door. Maybe you guys should fix that. And they were like, no, he's supposed to do that. And I just think that's really funny. But, you know, the opposite is also true, because when someone hits death's door, they get weakened tokens. And weakened tokens are a negative token. So like on your heroes, if you have no other negative tokens anywhere, then that means Chirurgeon will for sure try to bonk that hero next turn and get rid of the weakened tokens, except he might just kill them in the process, which I think is a very, it's a pretty, I didn't realize that would happen when we made this, when we made the fight like this, and it came back to bite me when I got blasted by a fully buffed Urchin who had actually used Song of Shadows the turn before, so he had the crit token, and then Chirurgeon buffed him with Leucotomy to give him the damage if stealth buff. So he actually managed to get the full crit buffed Haunting Melody. I think it was Ordained too. He just blasted my runaway in rank 4 for like 16 damage, putting her to death's door. And then Chirurgeon went immediately after, saw the weakened tokens on her, and was like, oh, let me help you with that. Bonked her in the head with his giant nail and killed her instantly. It was heartbreaking, but it was honestly a really funny interaction, and it made me think, wow, I really got myself there. And I think it was pretty cool to be able to get myself with my own enemy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And even hearing you just go through all the process and how the boss works and stuff, it really shows, like, I do think this is one of the best design units in the game, and just hearing all of that, it really does kind of show that, because it has a lot of moves, but it has patterns. You can bait it to do things you don't, or that you do want it to do. Like, I never considered going as far as like the trepanation juggling or whatever, but I do like to make sure that if someone gets bloodletting, you know, maybe I can guard them or something, just to make them keep trying to use it, because, you know, it's a dangerous attack or whatever with the bleed and stuff, but I mean, it's still, you'd rather see that than Bonesaw. So it's like being able to understand what the enemy can do, and then making it, you know, do things that are favorable for you, is I think really good design. So I say good job.
Yeah. I gotta say though, I think my favorite thing about making this guy was the buffs for Leucotomy. Those were really fun to come up with. On the patients stealing positive tokens, I think was like, because they're leeching off of you because the leech is on them, which I think was funny. Urchin, I realized that all of Urchin's moves, like all of Urchin's skills, move him in some way or another. Skulking Step moves him back, Haunting Melody moves him forward, even Song of Shadows moves him to rank 4 if he's not already there. So when he moves, he heals, which is kind of a disguised way of saying every turn he will heal 33%. But it also takes effect when he's moved by you or when other enemies move around him, which I didn't expect and is pretty funny. Widow, as I said, was we couldn't do much with her. We just gave her dodge. We hoped she could live. Woodsman, having the block plus and the damage buff if block plus.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
The way that works is it's not actually going to come into effect that much, because it's just meant to feed into the idea of Woodsman meant to just soak up hits. It's another thing that incentivizes you to hit Woodsman first to get rid of the block so he doesn't get the damage bonus. It's not so much, the goal is not so much to give him the damage bonus, it's meant to provide a suitable punishment for not hitting him.
Yeah, I think all of these buffs that Chirurgeon gives to the allies is that, or they do a good job of making it so, okay, I need to kill this thing immediately because bad stuff may happen afterwards. Like, all of it is threatening enough and annoying enough. Also, I hate this Ghoul one, by the way. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, that wasn't my idea.
Oh, no.
I suggested a convert block to block plus, just make his defense stronger. But Eric decided to move that to Woodsman and give Ghoul the crit instead, which I wholeheartedly agreed with, of course, because that's really funny.
Oh, it's so evil.
With the 100% bleed dealt, by the way, that means unordained Ghoul with Leucotomy buff will rend for 30 total damage.
Jeez Louise. And then, if it happens to be ordained in its ambition, that's even more.
Yeah, we love bleed.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then the worm buff.
I'm
so happy that exists. I thought about it when I saw the corpse light could turn any enemy into a worm pretty much. I'm like, should I ask about giving them a special buff too? And like, no, that's too silly. But then a couple of days after the update came out, Eric was talking to me about some stuff, and then he said, "Oh, by the way, what buff do you think the carrion eaters should have?" I'm like, are you serious?
Hell yeah.
So I literally that buff that's right there is literally my first draft of the idea I sent him. I'm like, this is really stupid, and you probably won't actually like it and accept it, but I gave him disease armor. And he's like, that sounds awesome, we're doing it.
Just copy paste the note right into the game script.
Pretty much. And now he has the wikis actually got this wrong at first. They said it was apply on hit disease, but then I went to check it myself and like, no, it actually is apply to attacker when hit disease. So if you hit that thing, you're getting disease. And
repose disease.
But the fact that it transforms into a big worm, that was entirely Eric's idea, and I'm surprised it even works. The way it works is Lukatomi gives the worm an extra action, and since
immediately, right?
Since eating a corpse also gives the worm an extra action, and eating a corpse is what makes them transform, worms are just coded to always transform when they get an extra action, because eating is the only way they can usually get one. So we can just sort of bypass that by just giving them an extra action ourselves. So then they're like, oh, I have an extra action, better transform, so they do it.
Classic Red Hook jank, but it's very intelligent jank.
It works, and it makes them really threatening, because the big worms apply a lot of negative tokens for the Chirurgeon to cure, and they do a lot of bleed, which the Chirurgeon synergizes with, and they're a surprisingly dangerous team with him. And it's a really funny interaction that, yeah, not a lot of players will see, since not a lot of people play with Corpse Light, but I hope it gets to make some people laugh, because it's a very unexpected and funny moment to happen.
With the other thing too, with the disease riposte, essentially, is that synergizes again with bloodletting. So
exactly
everything, like this move, being as fleshed out as it is, and having so many unique interactions, it's honestly crazy. Like this is almost like a freaking boss kit, in one move.
I was so amazed at how far they went, because first, the Chirurgeon was just going to be a character concept that Chris made in our meeting. Then he was like, oh, but we could make some trinkets and put those in the game. I'm like, that sounds awesome, let's do it. And then he's like, these trinkets are really cool, and we really like the design we went with, so we're gonna add him as an enemy after the game comes out. I'm like, this is amazing. This is a dream come true. I'm all for that. And then the months went by, Darkest Dungeon 2 fully released, more months went by, and Eric contacted me. Eric is the one of the game designers for Red Hook. Eric contacted me and said, hey, so we're working on the Chirurgeon now. Do you want to help us with that again? And I'm like, of course. So he's like, yeah, by the way, we're making him a fully fledged mini boss with his own node and environment and attacks and mechanics. And I'm like, okay, thank you. So it was just a truly, a really humbling and wonderful experience to work with him on this guy. And Eric, if you're watching this for some reason, thanks, man.
He has really watched a few of the videos. He's a great dude. And if I could tell you what we talk about in tester chat, I would, but usually just an all-around good guy.
Yeah, he's delightful. He made this such a good experience. Like, Lukatomi giving a unique buff to all the Gaunts, that was totally his idea. The negative token curing mechanic, that was my idea. So I think when those were added together, it made a mini boss better than the sum of its parts, and it came together really well, in my opinion, which you are free to disagree with. I am not biased. I mean, I am biased. You are free to disagree with. I am biased. I will accept anywhere he lands on the tier list.
F. No, I'm kidding.
Uh,
No, but I think the other thing with all of the stuff that he has going on, it makes him very interactive. I'm always a fan of interactive enemies. I don't like enemies. I don't like playstyles where the player just does whatever they want, the enemy just can't do anything about it. I don't like enemies
Yeah.
that do whatever they want, and you can't do anything about it. So I think this is honestly fantastic. And this is no bias at all on my part. I do think he's S, though. He's one of the best encounters in the game. He's so cool.
I'm so proud of him. When
Yeah,
when
good
I
job.
got when I got the update on release and I played it, he beat my ass the first time. I'm like, this is perfect. I'm so happy.
Yeah, he's
So-
dude. He is tough. Like, even though I've fought him several times, I know how it works. I had a run like, I don't know, a month ago or something where I fought him in Region 1. I almost wiped. He almost just whooped my ass that bad with you know, just the basic stuff, and I was like, damn, I cannot disrespect this man.
And you know, it's not a huge factor to the actual enemy design itself, but the rewards, I'm proud of those too.
Oh, they're really good. Like, it is always worth coming to this unit or this encounter. Besides, like, the what is it, the curing of diseases and stuff. You get mastery, you get items, and
Yeah.
it's all good.
Since we were making its own node, we had to make the rewards really unique and powerful to make it worth going to. So I think that was a lot of fun too. But this is about enemies, and I think the reward can matter in some enemies, like optional bosses in some cases. So I think it's important to at least mention here. But I'm
Totally.
glad you appreciate him, and he was really fun to work on, and it's been an absolute delight seeing all the reactions to him after the update came out.
I hope the community at large at least feels positively towards him. I mean, it's no collector getting instant turns on the summons. You know, some people hate that, so I haven't seen people complain about him. Like, I haven't seen anyone going, "Oh, this is totally unfair." It's just like, "Oh God, that."
The only complaint I saw was one person saying he was too weak, which is kind of funny.
Is that your alt
that's-
account?
No, definitely not. Hatchet Man. Let's move on to Hatchet Man.
Pillagers.
Yeah, pillagers.
Okay. I mean, I know you like the Gaunts a lot, so I figured we spent a lot of time there.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
I think,
but
yeah.
yeah, plus I don't think the pillagers are as loaded.
Oh no,
mechanically,
not
so,
nearly.
Yeah.
I do have thoughts on the anti and canon, but the others are pretty standard.
Yeah, because I mean,
Hatchet
like,
Man-
Hatchet Man is just so straightforward. It's poke and combo.
Yeah, I like that he has combo synergy. I think more enemies could use combo synergy, but I think he does it in a really intuitive and threatening way, because like you never want to get hit by finishing blow, so it makes combo clear very valuable. It's like a similar situation to Urchin's stealth. Combo clear isn't necessarily something you always want on your bar, so when these guys show up, it makes you feel really rewarded for having it.
Yeah, for sure. So with Hatchet Man, I mean, really nothing overall impressive. You know, it's a very stock enemy.
Yeah,
It's almost an import of the Brigand Cutthroat from the first game.
I do like that they have very different, not only visual armor designs, but also weapons to
Yes.
very noticeably distinguish them from the brigands in that game.
Yeah.
I
So
think
they
it's
look
very,
different
very
enough
good touch.
to where they feel different.
And
they got
you know, they're
combos.
not as boring as the bandits in the first game either.
Oh, definitely not. And I know people, I don't know if you've been watching the DD1 streams recently, but people were appalled that the Brigand Cutthroat could use Shank from like rank 3 and hit your rank 4. They're like, why can this dude melee across the
Yeah,
map?
that was very. I'm glad they can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. The pillagers. This game, the pillagers in particular, really highlight how this game makes an effort to really differentiate frontline for backline heroes. Like, backline heroes genuinely do not get targeted that much. The front line is taking that much damage, which I feel like was the intention in DD1, but so many enemies could just hit the back anyways.
Yeah.
But in this game, you're getting finishing blow, front mortar, fell the tree, all that stuff just hits the front too. And so like even the backline enemy, like Crackshot, has its most dangerous attack is front mortar, which is a frontline attack. So I think the bandits really highlight that the front line is where the punishment goes in this game, which I think is cool. Yeah. And they do it in a interactive way with combo synergy, and there's not much to complain about, but there's not much to love either.
I think another good thing about them, you know, besides what you were just saying, is that they're very straightforward as enemies. They're not complex at all. Like they have a little bit of synergy here and there, like the dog or 2 hatchet men or something like that, but they can also operate independently, and it's not something where you have to like check all the debuffs, the buffs, and you're like, what the hell is happening? It's pretty straightforward. So
yeah.
With that said, though, how do you feel about Hatchet Man?
I think they're B. They're probably about as good as Lost Souls, but I don't like them as much, so I think they're B.
Okay, I was feeling like BC or something like that, because they're cool, they're straightforward. It comes down to kind of their visual design. Like I do appreciate that they're an upgraded version of their predecessor, if you can even call it that, but I really don't think that they're strikingly different enough to stand out.
They are basic.
Yeah, like when I run into these, I just feel like...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. When I run into these, I just feel like Brigand Pillager, or Brigand Cutthroat.
Yeah.
But yes, we can talk
about
the dog.
I'm glad they added the dog in the Beasts and Burdens update, because he rounds out the pillagers a little bit, because I like that he has some support, because the pillagers have none at all. They don't help each other. They just hit you, and the dog does at least something other than hit you, which is nice. This wiki is also outdated. Watchdog doesn't add dodge anymore.
Yeah, it's only on the riposte trigger, right?
Oh, riposte adds dodge.
No, I thought when it hits with the riposte, that's when it gets the dodge.
It might. That's good. I'll have to pay attention.
No,
I know Watchdog.
Right, wait, no.
I know Watchdog does. I know Watchdog doesn't add riposte dodge anymore. That's the important thing.
Yes, I think
but the
that's
riposte does have 30% crit. That is not outdated. That is that high. It's ridiculous.
One thing
the riposte is the most threatening thing about this enemy, and I think that's a cool way to do it, because he's just meant to. He's a little bit like a less effective woodsman. He's just meant to make picking your targets a little harder, and this guy does that by making you really think twice about swinging into his riposte. And I maybe think 30% crit is a little excessive, but it certainly does its job. I just don't like the dogs that much, because I feel like the dodge has its place on like the wild dogs, but I think it just makes fighting these dogs a lot more drawn out and troublesome than it needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as the kit goes, I think it's cool that it has riposte and guard and stuff. Like, that's really awesome. The bleed damage, totally thematic. They don't have something like fetch. Actually, I think the creature den ones.
The creature den ones do, but these ones don't.
And my only real complaint, besides, like you said, the dodge kind of drawing this out, is just the riposte crit. I feel like that's too high for how hard it hits. Like, if this crit goes through and the bleed, this is something like 20 damage on a counter hit overall.
Yeah.
It's a bit much.
It's a bit much. Also, this is a minor thing, but I was playing with my partner one time and they were watching, and they pointed out, I didn't really notice this until they pointed it out, that is a really messed up looking dog. Dogs don't look like that. They don't move like that. I think they reused the like zombie dog animations. So like this dog that's supposed to be like normal and alive looks really messed up. I like that they gave him a little hat though. That's nice.
I mean, he is styling.
Yeah.
He's got the Houndmaster Spike Collar! Houndmaster confirmed.
I can't take that away from him, but he does look a little strange.
This just goes into the conspiracy theory that Chris hates dogs.
Yeah. I can't blame him. I mean, what? So I think this might be our first C.
Oh, totally agree.
Yeah.
No complaints.
Firemouth. I like Firemouth. I think her design is really cool. I think that goes without saying. I think
she looks great.
She's sick as hell. And I think the problem is she's pretty, like, she's the most distinct and cool looking pillager out of all of them, but she's really basic. Her main attack is just a dot attack, and that's it. And
Firefly.
Then yeah, it is. And then she could blind the front line sometimes, which is pretty threatening, but it doesn't feel pronounced enough to be like her signature move or something. The most memorable thing about her is that her out of position attack, Flint Strike, looks like really badass for what an out of position attack should be. Like she just whips out those torches and hits you with them with this really cool particle effect. I'm like, damn, why is that her stumble move? That should be her main attack. It looks awesome. So I think when her
team going ham.
I think when her stumble move is the most memorable thing about her, that says something about her other moves.
In a way, but the one that does stick out to me is Flashfire a little bit, just because for some reason I always feel like I get double crit or double blinded by that thing. I don't know why. Maybe
I mean, 10% crit is significant, but it's not that high. So.
It's not. It's totally fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad because they're the coolest ones on paper, but there's not a lot to say about Firemouth. I think they're B or C.
Feeling that too. Kind of on the same wavelength here. And then we have an enemy that I hate. I hate the crack shot, dude.
Yeah, I've gathered that from.
It's front mortar, dude. Like I can give Widow Desperate Grab. I hate front mortar with like all of my heart, because these guys are decently fast. Like they get ordained, they're up to 6 speed. That's already faster than most of the hero cast baseline. And then you add stuff like, what is it, Hastened or Antiquarian or Elite, and these guys go first, stun your ass, and you know you're already on the back foot from like turn 1.
I genuinely did not notice they were that fast. And yeah, front mortar is a really oppressive move, but on the other hand, I think I like that it's lit. It's funny because I like how threatening they are in rank 4 specifically, because it makes moving them super impactful, but it also means that like sometimes they can just spawn in rank 3 and then they're just useless. Which
there's a match where they spawn in 2.
I think that's a bit silly. I like how weak they are to movement, but Blister Shot just does nothing unless it decides to crit you for some reason.
Got a pretty good crit.
Why is that the highest crit in its kit? That's so troll.
Well, just to keep it threatening. That's how I take it, you know.
It's just it feels like such a spiteful thing to me. In a funny way though.
Yeah.
But front mortar is it's definitely a very disruptive move, but Shell Shock is actually what tilts me more than that, because it hits both your backline, and the stress that's such a high stress chance for a cleave. I think that's a bit much. So like while front mortar is probably a stronger move, I find that my frontliners are usually better equipped to handle that because they have move and stun resist. Typically, that's like what you build them for if you're going for resists on frontliners. But Shell Shock, there's no like easy source of stress resist you could put on your backliners, and they typically end up winding up the most stress out of my team. So like I roll out of the Dreaming General with my Plague Doctor and with my Plague Doctor on Jester at like 8 to 9 stress, and then I run into bandits, and that guy just shell shocks them both and finishes the job, and they both melt down. It's a weirdly oppressive move for how understated its effects actually seem.
Yeah, it's got that 10% crit just in case you want to have 2 stress instead of 1.
Yeah, right. I think what it comes down to with these guys is that they're either super annoying and oppressive or not a problem at all.
Yeah.
And while I think that has its place, I think the difference is a little too pronounced in some way. Either make I think the best way to do it would be to make Blister Shot a tiny bit stronger while making the front mortar and or shell shock a tiny bit weaker.
Yeah, honestly, I would, for how strong front mortar is, I'm glad it only has 5 crit, but I wouldn't mind if this dropped down like to 4 to 6 or something like that.
Oh, that's a lot of damage. I didn't even notice that. That's so much.
It hits freaking hard. And
Damn.
so, like, if you're not running Poet in rank 1 or Sergeant or something like that, or if you couldn't toe-to-toe Hellion and stick her up there, it's like, you know, whoever's getting knocked is stunned, knocked back, so they essentially skip 2 turns.
I'm actually one of those freaks who still runs Frontline Runaway, so you can imagine how this...
Dude, she dies to that. She just crumbles.
Yeah. So, yeah, please... front mortar could use something, like just lower something, lower the damage, lower the disruption, something. One of those would be nice.
Yeah, because like you were saying, this unit is very binary. If it's in rank 4, it's terrifying. If it's in 2 or 3, it's whatever. If it's in 1, you don't care.
If it's in 1, you laugh at it. But that does have the humorous side effect of this being the most crippled enemy by Echoing March that exists.
Oh yeah, it feels so good.
Yeah. I think this is a letter C, but higher than the dog.
I usually don't do left to right, but I will.
Yeah, me either.
I will rate here.
I just prefer it.
That's fine. I am not a fan of this enemy either. It's just annoying, but not the good kind of annoying. You know,
not the good kind of annoying, like Cardinal.
We're gonna have words on Cardinal.
All right.
We got the cannon.
Speaking of annoying, we got the cannon, which I mentioned this before recording, but my hot take is that a lot of people consider like right there, it says the implication is an elite pillager enemy. It isn't. It has no restrictions on which region it can appear in. It is no different from another size 2, but a lot of people count this as a mini boss, I see, and I don't think that's true. I think people just see that it's a reference to DD1, and it was a boss in DD1, so therefore it's a mini boss that's super threatening in this game, but it really isn't. It's just really tanky, and it can be dangerous, but it's really not. It's not too hard to disrupt and plan for it, and that's if it doesn't just misfire and directly benefit you. Yeah. The main thing is I think it's just a size 2 tank for the pillagers. That's it. It's not a mini boss. It's not a wandering boss. It's just a size 2 for the pillagers, like Woodsman or something. It might be it's definitely a little stronger than Woodsman, but it's not that much stronger than like a knight or something, in my opinion. Because it takes 2 rounds to do anything. Well, just if you have a blind, you're pretty much safe for the most part, because a blind takes the hit chance down to 50%. So if you roll a 75% chance for it to attack you instead of misfiring, then that's a 50% chance for it to actually hit you. So you're already down to like a 35% chance for it to hit you. That's really low.
Yeah, I think because I mean, I had that sentiment as well, that I just treated it as a mini boss until you brought up that it was kind of like just a pillager size 2. Then, you know, it made sense with that too. But I think The other reason people like myself included kind of felt it was mini boss tier was just because even though you can disrupt it, and a lot of people don't even know that you can shorten the damage, like the reach of Boom by moving it around, which is a cool little touch. But I think that just the fact that it hits so hard, it's like, oh, I didn't know what to do. It hit my entire team for 14 to 20, and that catches people off guard. But otherwise, it's not too difficult to corral this thing. It's just annoying because since the debuff res is so low, you can blind it, you can weaken it, and if you pull it forward, it's only hitting your front line and stuff. So you can manage it. It's just
you get 2 rounds to just dumpster all your debuffs into it and make the Boom as weak as it possibly can be. And I think not enough people are doing that.
Yeah, and understandably, I mean, this is definitely one of those enemies that it really helps to understand how it works, and it starts with just knowing the Boom targeting. So like if it's on the very back, hits everyone. If it's on the middle, hits 3. If it's up front, it hits 2. So corpse destruction really gets some use in this fight alongside all the other stuff. Honestly, Occultist is like the 1-to-1 counter for this unit.
Oh yeah, especially now that Vuln Hex removes block in addition to applying Vuln, it's just gone.
So you got the counters to the buffs. You got Weaken that you can stick on it. You got Burning Stars that pierces block. So Occultist has a ton of answers to this thing, and Demon's Pull to get rid of the corpses.
Though that being said, I think everyone except me is playing this fight wrong. You shouldn't pull it forward to make Boom target less people. You should push it back to make Misfire target the most people. That's what I do. And it worked once, and that's my only memory of it working. I have no memory of the 10 times it failed.
Why does Misfire do damage?
It doesn't. That's wrong.
Well, maybe it does do damage in the file, but a guaranteed miss or something like that. I don't know.
Or something. Yeah. That's like interesting. I didn't notice that. But yeah, it just push it back and count on the 25% chance for full party stress heal. That's how you play the Pounder fight.
That was so funny. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about canon. I think, though, here's my the biggest question is, do you think the canon is an autonomous being, or do you think there's someone inside it controlling it?
There has to be someone in it because it's got the little visor slit.
Yeah. But like everyone always calls attention to that because there was the Matchman in the first game, but this one doesn't have that. So
Matchman got smart. He got inside the tank.
Yeah.
Instead of standing behind and getting shot.
Honestly, that's probably one of the best places you can be in this game, inside a tank. So I don't blame him.
True. I mean, all that said, I still hate this thing. It's not even because of the mechanics and stuff. It's just such a slow fight. This is like an 8-round fight. It really is.
Unless you have like a really solid block removal option, it takes forever.
I'm gonna put it in C unless you got a better spot.
Yeah, no, it's C.
Nice.
Anti.
All right, I think Anti will round out this video if you're cool with that.
Yeah, this took a while.
I'm
sorry for talking so much.
No, it's fine. This is why you're here.
I've been excited.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk about this.
Yeah. So with Anti.
Oh.
Anti is the actual mini boss of the Brigands for this game for sure. Yes. And aside from the obvious like fan service callback of her being the antiquarian from DD1, obviously, I think this is just a really well designed and cool mini boss. This is actually Anti was a lot of the basis for my thoughts on the direction to take Chirurgeon, because I really appreciate how Anti is such a commanding presence in the fight and is so dangerous without actually directly attacking you that much.
Yeah.
Because like, because like there's festering vapors, which actually on its own that is a really strong attack, and if she just decided to use that every turn, we'd all die.
Yes.
But she still mostly supports her allies, or can even capitalize on combo herself, which I didn't know that until recently, how she can stun you on combo,
It's very
if
rare because usually
if
the
one of
pillager, like the hatchet men, will eat it
yeah,
before her.
but if one of them can do it, then she can stun you too, and I think that's pretty cool. I think Protect Me is a really I think that's definitely her iconic thing in this game, her signature moves. She just uses that every round, and it's always a factor. And you have to, if you have like a guard ignore, like Thrown Dagger, then it's very easy to get around. But if you don't, then it's a struggle to hit her until her allies are dead. And I like that it also moves each brigand into their more optimal positions. Yes. I think that's a really nice way to add more support to that move. Only move of hers I don't love that much is Invigorating Vapors, which feels both too strong and really weak, because the dodge is annoying, but the strength chance is so low that it might as well not be a factor, and strength isn't a very powerful token on brigands anyways, unless they happen to get front mortar, in which case it sucks, but that's so rare it barely happens. And I think it could stand to be a little more supportive in a more interesting way.
I mean, possibly. I just hope they don't give it like 10% chance at crit token or something. I'd scream.
I mean, she already has a passive buff that gives all her allies 5% crit, so maybe they don't need that.
Yeah, see, that's something that isn't super apparent either when she shows up, is that she buffs all of the other brigands to be a little bit stronger, and then if you're able to kill all of the allies, she loses the extra turn, so she slows down a ton and makes it actually a bit easier to close out the fight. And I think this is a typo, because this is 300% blight resist.
Yeah, that's not right. Yeah. But I think the extra action, if allies are present, that's just for Protect Me.
Like, I'm pretty sure it is, because it's got the 1 turn cooldown, so she always uses Protect Me, like turn 1, and then uses something else turn 2, and then repeats that.
But when all her allies are dead, there's no one for her to use guard on, so she doesn't need that extra action anymore.
You can use it on the corpses. Misplay.
I wish you could do that.
Oh my god.
Actually, no, I don't. What am I saying? I just mean that would be funny. Well, just those two sentiments are often interchangeable to me.
Yeah, what if you had Corpse Light? She can use Protect Me on the worms.
I wonder if she can.
I'm pretty sure she can. It just says allies. It doesn't say pillagers.
That's so funny. I hope that's how it works. But yeah, I like that she is such a I like that she empowers the pillagers as much as she does, but I think the worst part of the fight is when she's all alone and just spamming Nervous Stab and getting dodge. Because, like, I think that's a cool, like, thematic thing when she doesn't have her allies to back her up. She's just scared and flailing. But first of all, that attack is, like, kind of strong.
Oh yeah, we jokingly call it Confidence Stab when this thing crits to, like, 24.
Not only is it really strong for the move it's trying to be, I think it draws out the fight a little too much, because she has a pretty okay amount of health and 2 death armor, and she's getting dodge plus every round. That's really drawing out the least interesting part of the fight when she doesn't have any allies left.
Yeah. And
this was actually, going back to Chirurgeon, this was actually the problem I was really trying to fix with Lukatomi. I wanted to make the heal keep his allies alive so that you try and kill the Chirurgeon first and remove this awkward phase where he's the last one standing, like the Antiquarian, like happens with the Antiquarian so much. But people just kill the allies anyways, which I think is just the strategy for everything in this game. Just kill the weak guys first.
Yeah.
But I think that does a disservice to fights designed around them, because the support boss usually ends up being the only one left, and that's when the support boss doesn't have anyone left to support, it gets a little awkward.
It does, and ultimately, I think it just comes down to it's just the nature of turn-based games in general. Is just, if the enemy has the same amount of turns as you do, you want to reduce the amount of turns it has because that reduces the danger. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Chirurgeon or Antiquarian, they're healing, buffing, and all that, and it's annoying and scary, but in the case of Antiquarian, it is so hard to kill her anyway.
Yeah.
Through all of it, it's like you have to kill the helpers, and with Chirurgeon too.
Yeah.
Even though he does these devastating buffs on the allies, it's kind of like, well, that's why you want to kill the allies, because the buffs are crazy, and even though he can heal them for a lot, we're still able to line up like 2 or 3 hits, and that usually takes something out.
We talked about making Lukatomi plus 100% max HP buff and a full heal.
Hell no.
And it was a bit much, but I also want to see the timeline where that happened. Because that would definitely be a way to make you kill the Chirurgeon first. But
well, that would be so dangerous. If the ads were surviving the entire time with him and you had to kill him first, that'd be super dangerous.
Because, yeah, that's, to go back to Antiquarian, that's kind of what the Antiquarian fight is. It's just that Pillagers and Anti are a lot less dangerous than Gaunt and Chirurgeon are. She can survive for a long time, but she's not doing that much to you physically, except for stirring vapors, which doesn't end up happening that often.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like if she did spam this every turn, like you would die. The whole party would wipe in like 4 turns. She
gets anamnesis, but for free.
True. God, occultist sucks. I'm kidding. It's actually very good now. With all that said, I think one of the other things that I really like about Antiquarian is that, I mean, her design looks really good, obviously. Yeah. She got the glow up from the first game. She was already pretty good in the first game. The festering vapor she has now, this is almost a direct port from Butcher's Circus. Because in base Darkest Dungeon, it only hit one person, but in BC, she could hit the whole team. So they kind of gave her that little power up. And a lot of people want her to be playable, but her being a mini boss is very, very intentional. Like, if you ever talked to Chris about it, he says that like she is probably the only member of the entire cast that he would qualify or categorize as being pure evil.
Yeah, and like not to stomp on the hopes of the anti-enjoyers, but I think you can't get much more certain to deconfirm a character than making them a mini boss in the same game you're hoping for them to be in.
What if we beat her 10 times and she comes to her senses and joins us? Like, nah.
Yeah. Oh well.
Oh, Josephine.
To be honest, I never liked her in the first game anyways. I think she's way cooler as a mini boss, and I think having her show up in like one of my first runs of DD2 on launch day was a really cool sign that, oh, this game's actually going to do different things with the characters sometimes. It was really cool to see that, and it made me excited for what they were going to do with future characters, which ended up panning out with like Flagellant being super different from how he is in DD1, aesthetically at least. And I just think it's cool that they're open to taking the old cast in new directions with this game.
Red Hook is really good at taking risks, and most of the time they pay off.
Most of the time. Other times we get Cardinal.
True. But yeah, I liked Antiquarian, but I do like that she's an enemy. It makes the game feel different, and they did a good job making her an enemy. I mean, she's a very like distinct fight. You change your pillager strategy a little bit when you fight her.
So she fits in with the pillagers aesthetically, surprisingly well.
Yeah,
it's very cool. Like it gives the impression that she's like the leader, and I think that's neat.
Yeah, I mean she essentially is.
Yeah.
We have to rate her.
Oh no. What are you thinking?
I'm I'm thinking A. I was kind of on the S fence, but then when you start talking about nervous stab, giving her dodge and drawing out the bad part, like that specifically, I was like, okay, that's at least -1.
It's silly enough to put her down. I think A for antiquarian.
Yeah, and there's no J for Josephine.
Yeah,
and we can make it, but
that would be a little too low, I think.
Are you sure?
J.
Are you sure though? I could just make it like that. Boom. I'm kidding. I'm not.
That would make that the thumbnail and draw in the
the angry
the anti-stands.
I could.
Well, if you have the option now, it's in the tape.
Yeah. I think that's a good stopping point, though. We got plenty of stuff. Like this is me like 5 videos at this point.
Predictably, I talked a lot about the Gaunts.
It's okay.
#1 Gaunt enjoyer.
I think some of the ones coming up. I'm looking at the cultist. I only want to talk about like the Deacon Plus. Of it. And for the creature den, not really much to say besides like explaining how they work, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think
actually I have one like soapbox I want to stand on with spiders in particular, but you'll have to see what I mean when we get there.
Oh joy.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
So this is a lot of fun though. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for wanting to do it. I didn't even consider something like this. So when you proposed, I was like, you know what, that sounds really cool.
Thanks. It was really cool. I enjoyed it.
All right, we'll have to reconvene at a later time. I know it's holidays and stuff right now, so it's gonna be a little hectic.
Yeah, but I'm glad we got it started.
Exactly. So, thanks, Sammy, for joining. Thank you for watching, humble viewer. Definitely be back for more. Let us know what you're thinking down below. If you agree with the desperate grab assessment. And yeah, thanks for watching.
I will fight for my stances in the comments. Actually, no, I won't. That's a lie.
I mean, it boosts the algorithm traffic, so please, if you're upset, please say it. Please.
You have fun. Have fun down there.
I know. Oh man, there's sometimes people write me these like long hate essays, like here's why you're wrong, and it's like 18 bullet points. I go, Glad you spent an hour typing that.
Yeah. I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
All right.
Any parting words?
Always save at least 1 bucket of leeches for the whole run.
True. That is good advice. Save it for the mountain.
All right. Leechmonger out.
All right. All right. I think we can end on that. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, all right.
Leechmonger out. We'll see you next time.